Hi there, I'm Lisa Taylor, and welcome to Ideas on Truth. So, I've been thinking about so many different things, it'll be hard for me to kind of narrow it down tonight, but I watched a video this morning about a teacher who had affected many people's lives, and when she was in her 90s, she came back to the town where she had been teaching when she was quite young, and they had found a lot of her students and brought them to this classroom where she came in and taught a class, and so many stories sort of were presented to her about how she had changed their lives and how she had seen them and seen the good in them, and that the fact that she believed in them completely changed the course of their lives. And I just started thinking about, this video made me cry, but because it was so incredibly touching, but it made me realize how one person, I know we know this, but how one person can change the course of another person's life without even knowing it a lot of times. And it many times boils down to how we are seeing another person. Are we seeing them for who they truly are? Are we seeing their brilliance and their goodness and their greatness and their vision for themselves and for the world around them? If we can see that in them, they can see it in themselves. And it reminds me of a couple of things. One, this quote, what was the one that I was going to share with you? The one this is in Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy, where she talks about holding the perfect model in thought and looking at that model continually as you carve it out in your grand and noble life. I'm kind of paraphrasing here. And she talks about us being sculptors, working at various forms, molding and chiseling thought. And I just feel like that's so what teachers do. And what we can do for each other. If we're seeing another person for their greatness, and we're seeing them for who they truly are, sometimes not even for the way they see themselves. I'm remembering an experience I had, this is years ago, with a friend that I didn't know all that well, and she was struggling with being addicted to smoking. And I just never saw her as a smoker. It just didn't make sense to me that she smoked. It was just odd. So we were in this conversation talking about things, and it came up that she was trying to quit smoking. And I said, I just don't see you that way. I just don't see you as a smoker. You just don't seem like a smoker to me. And I kind of tossed it off as not a big deal. And years later, she came back to me and she said, and I should mention that we were talking about metaphysical ideas, and it wasn't just sort of an offhanded comment. It actually was based in metaphysics and metaphysical law. But she came back to me years later, and we hadn't been in touch for years. We happened to run into each other, and she said, what you said to me that night helped me quit smoking. I didn't have another cigarette from that point forward. And I thought, wow, I had no idea that one little comment, because she saw herself, she had a glimpse of a moment of seeing herself as not a smoker. And she believed it, and she embraced that idea, and then was able to let go of the habit of smoking, which was very cool. There was another experience I had, and it was the same kind of thing. I was in a parking lot talking to somebody I didn't really know all that well, and it was in a community where there were lots of adults who would interact with each other all days, and she was in the parking lot and she was feeling really sick, like she had a cold or something. And she said, "Oh no, don't get too close. I have a cold." And I said, "Well, that's not you. I'm not worried about it, but I know that's not you." And I meant it, because it just wasn't her. It wasn't what I was seeing in her. And again, she came back to me days later and she said, "I didn't realize it, but when you said that, I walked away and I felt fine." Like, she didn't realize it until later. That's when the cold left her, that she didn't have a cold anymore. And not only does seeing people encourage them to be the true person that they can be, a lot of times it can be very healing, because if you see the spiritual individuality, if you see the true likeness of the way the Creator has made someone, you see all the goodness that's there, all the health that's there, all the spiritual intuition and flexibility and strength and health and whatever it is, and you see that in them, you see their core of goodness, it gives them a glimpse into seeing it for themselves. And as we see that in ourselves, as we see that perfect model of who we are, we can carve that out in grand and noble lives, to quote that, to sort of mirror that quote. There's another line in Science and Health where Mrs. Eddy talks about Jesus beholding the perfect man, where sinning mortal man appears to mortals. And in this perfect man, the Savior saw God's own likeness, and this correct view of man healed the sick. So there's something to this, and this conversation all started from my watching this video this morning about a teacher seeing her students and seeing their potential and seeing their God-given potential and their God-given abilities to expand and progress and go forward in life and be all that they were made to be. It's like finding the purpose of our lives and feeling that fire inside of us and seeing the goodness that God made us to be and expressing that. And as we see it, as we hold that perfect model in our thought, we can carve that out in our life. Sometimes other people can help us see it. Sometimes we can help other people see it in them. So I'm very encouraged to, it's actually the first day of the month on a Monday, which is kind of cool. I always like it only happens twice this year, and it only happens twice next year, where the first of the month falls on a Monday. That's like a good beginning point. Anyway, arbitrary, but kind of cool. I'm thinking today, I'm very encouraged about really seeing myself and seeing all of my God-given potential and seeing others and seeing their God-given potential and holding that model of perfection before my thought about myself and about those around me. And I encourage all of us to do that because it's healing. It's very cool, and people feel better, and you may be the only person who believes in somebody. You may be the only one. You may change the course of someone's life, and that's just awesome. All right, I love you guys. Please put your comments below. Please share this. There are lots of people who would love to know these ideas and love to be able to be reminded of seeing someone else's brilliance. So I see your brilliance. I hope you see mine, and let's do this together. All right, I love you guys. Bye.